I have never made a video game. In Godot, to those unaware, Godot is a game engine rapidly rising in popularity after some competitors have made some unwise business decisions. I decided to tackle the engine proper for the first time in the 71st Godot Wild Jam over the course of 9 days. I was joined by my good friend Scoot, who has similar levels of unknown in Godot as me. The theme for this game jam was unexpected consequences, and the sub-themes or wildcards were rest, seasons, and some other thing that I forgot. For ages, I wanted to make a stat raiser similar to iconic games like Tokimeki Memorial, Long Live the Queen, and The Yogg. On the other hand, Scoot is insanely good at drawing dragons. Thus, we arrived at the premise of a dragon-raising stat raiser. 9 days seemed like a reasonable amount of time to make something polished and cute, so we were off. We decided on the premise quickly enough. The king wants you to slay an evil dragon, but you want to save it. To prove to the king the dragon is worth saving, you decide to raise the dragon on an island full of cotton candy sheep over the course of the year. You must teach it both morality and make it less inept at life by raising its stats. In game terms, the player will have 4 seasons to raise their dragon. At the end of each season, a major event will occur, and the player must make a choice and pass the corresponding stat check. If they pass it, the dragon will learn some lesson on morality or other, and the dragon must pass 3 of these stat checks in order to beat the game. Each season has 6 weeks, because it's Fantasyland and time can be whatever I'd like it to be. And every week the player must choose from one of 9 activities for which the dragon to partake in, raising the correlating stat by 2 points as well as the dragon's stress. Should the dragon's stress max out, it will collapse dramatically and lose 2 weeks worth of stats. But stress is not really an unexpected consequence. We were stretching for the theme a little bit, so we decided to add a consequence event mechanic. Every odd-numbered week, there is a stat check for a stat that takes place in a different location than the one chosen. If the player fails the stat check, they lose a point from their most recent activity. This is supposed to incentivize the player to raise these stats, as all stats during these consequence events end up popping up as a way to beat the seasonal event check. We originally wanted to have dozens of different endings, but settled for 5. 1 pertaining to each stat group, 1 generic good end, and 1 bad end, simply because it was a lot of extra work, particularly on the art end, as we wanted to have unique graphics for every single ending. Most of the code for this game was a lot of behind-the-scenes calculations and checks rather than any physics calculations or interactions, largely due to the fact that this game was basically just made in the user interface rather than, the guys running into each other. We created singletons for the game manager, signal manager, and stat manager, as we felt the latter would be particularly helpful given how many classes would need to reference the dragon stats, and then focused on modularizing things into scenes within scenes within scenes, since that's a huge appeal of Godot. While everything did work, I sometimes found myself wondering when was an appropriate time to use this extra step of modularization and when wasn't. If any Godot experts want to give tips in the comments, feel free to let me know. We also ended up using Dialogic, a free Godot plugin for the dialogue manager. It's super versatile and flexible and has the ability to add Animal Crossing-like speech built right into it, so that's a plus for me. Usually, I work as either the sole artist on a project or not as an artist at all, so a dragon for the king was a unique challenge. We decided to split up certain aspects of the artwork based on our strengths. Scoot would draw all of the dragons, while I would draw all of the humans, and then we would take turns on the backgrounds as was convenient. The art style for this game was incredibly important to us, and we decided to go with some sketchy brushes and some watercolor overlays on top to give the book, or the UI, an ancient book-like feel, as if you were flipping through a tome from the Middle Ages. I really enjoyed working on the UI for this game in particular, especially with the map. It's like you're drawing on the map, isn't that cool? Yay! Usually you hear horror stories of game jams being incredibly skewed toward the end in terms of crunch, because the scope needs to be cut down. That has certainly happened to me before, but that didn't happen to us this time around. Beyond cutting some endings early on, we actually ended up implementing more than we intended. Creating unique activity illustrations and cool scene transitions, we added a lot of fun polish to the game that we're glad we got to. To make sure we got everything done on time, we dedicated the entire first day, or well, 4 p.m. till we slept, to planning and design to make sure we had everything down pat. We then used bare minimum placeholders to get the majority of the coding figured out within the next 4 days, taking the time to learn what we needed to while the game jam was still young rather than trying to rush it all in the last day. In my opinion, it's important to have a horizontal slice of your game finished by the halfway point in a game jam to make sure that you'll be done on time. Because we did that, we were able to dedicate the rest of the week to mostly working on the art, which was nice and relaxing and fun. Except when it wasn't, but it was mostly fun. Basically, the entire game was finished by the end of Saturday. It was only the last day of polish and bug fixes that ended up being a little bit of a pain. On Friday, we had built the game and sent it out to be playtested by some close friends. The number one piece of feedback we got was a lack of clarity in understanding when seasons ended and a lack of understanding for how morality events impacted the ending. We decided to remedy this by creating a season transition effect, as well as additional text that changes depending on whether or not you've accomplished certain season end events during the endings. Scoot handled the first thing and I handled the latter. We were both busy Sunday morning, so we did not get started on finishing up the game until noon the game jam was due, aka 4 hours before the final deadline. Also, Biden dropped out with the presidential race in the middle of the call, our final rush call. So I was distracted with that for a bit, which wouldn't have been so bad had we not had a last-minute bug. Overall, it was fine, save for the fact that we were so down to the wire that I couldn't implement all of the morality event text into the game. All of the setup text is there, I just couldn't get it in without risking missing the build submission. But it is there if you got like the physical dragon ending. It's the only one I managed to get in time, so huzzah. All in all, I'm really happy with how the game came out. It works, it's got polish, it's cute, it's fun. Beyond a few balancing tweaks and some additional endings, there isn't much on the surface that I'd actually want to change about the game. I mean, we won the game jam, so, can't really be like upset or too regretful because clearly we did something right. I was surprised. I found out while I was recording this, so I had to go back and quickly make some tweaks to the script. But good tweaks, and now I can name this video something clickbaity. Future me, come up with some good ideas, please. But if there is one thing I'd change if I did this again, it would probably be behind-the-scenes work to rely less on singletons. I feel like we really abused our use of singletons in the game manager script especially, and if the game had been something as long or expansive as its inspirations, it could have come back to bite us. But it wasn't. It was a short learning experience game jam game, so it's fine. You can play the game yourself for free in browser. Link is in the description. Consider subscribing and checking out my other videos. I like to make games and sing songs. Additionally, consider checking out my Twitch. Sometimes I stream game dev stuff, or otherwise work on fun arts and crafts. Okay, see you, bye bye!